Nishant and Gokul are on the line. You can post a question and they can try to help you troubleshoot it if you have any issues with that. Okay, you can also click on the raise hand button icon if you have any issues connecting or if you want to ask a question. Okay, and I can unmute you or answer it if you post a question by typing into the chat window. Okay, let's get started. So I'm going to be doing the demo on the Permissions Manager component. And I'm a SharePoint architect with KeyPoint, and I help to design these products. Okay, so first I'm going to go over the agenda, what I'll be covering today. I'll be going over a bit about the company. Then I'll give you a product overview of SharePoint Permissions Manager. I'll go over some of the use cases of the product, of what SharePoint Permission Manager can be used for in your company. And then we'll have a live demo of the application. About probably 30 minutes into the PowerPoint presentation, I'll be switching over to the live demo. Okay, and then we can go and look at the reports and what it can do, and you can determine if it suits your requirements. Okay, at the end, I'll try to leave about 10-15 minutes for any questions you might have and answers I'll provide at the end of the demo. I see a couple of people just joined in now. So if you have any questions or difficulty seeing the screen, you can click on the raise your hand button or post a question in the chat. Okay. So a little bit about the company. KeyPoint was founded in Jersey City, New Jersey in 2012. It's a US-based company. In 2013, we started development of what we call the SharePoint Essentials Toolkit. And that's what SharePoint Permissions Manager is part of. It's a component that's part of this suite, of this toolkit. You don't have to purchase the whole suite, but you can license just this one component, or you can, if you have other if you find that there's other components in the suite that are useful, then you can just get the whole suite. Okay. In 2014, we added new components to this suite, including Permissions Manager. So Permissions Manager has been through a few iterations. It's about 3 years now, roughly. So it's gone through many bug fixes and updates. So it's a fairly stable program. Okay, in 2015, our customers doubled from the first year, and we continue to work on and develop the SharePoint Essentials Toolkit suite. Okay, in 2016, last year we got a review from SharePointReviews.com. We requested the review, but it was an independent review done by SharePointReviews.com. Okay. In last year also, we had several SharePoint MVPs doing that did some reviews of our product as well. Vlad, he owns Absolute SharePoint, if you ever use that site. But we've got some good feedback from customers and from SharePoint MVPs. Okay, so what is SharePoint Permissions Manager? I'm going to go over an overview of the product. So SharePoint Permissions Manager, again, is part of the SharePoint Essentials Toolkit, and it is a Windows client application, so it gets installed on the client machine, not on the server, but it's a Windows application, so it's not a web-based server application. Okay, the tool is designed for SharePoint site owners and site administrators. Most of the functionality of SharePoint Permissions Manager requires full control or site collection administrator rights, just because of some of the abilities in the tool to read the permissions and enumerate them, etc. But you don't need to be a farm admin to use the tool. Okay, so it can be a site owner or a site collection administrator. Okay, so the tool basically what it'll do is it'll build reports on SharePoint security. So you can report on a user's access, like an individual user. You could report on an AD group's permissions across your SharePoint environment or all the site collections that you manage. So for example, if you need to see a report on an AD group called domain users, for example, if you want to find out where that's listed anywhere, you can use this tool to do that. Those type of reports. And I'll go over more detail. I'll go into more detail with the reports in the live demo. Okay, and so again, you can identify user and group permissions as well as the members within those groups. So within any Active Directory group like domain users, it'll search inside of the groups as well if in those reports, if you choose to select that option. Okay, the tool also has the ability to bulk edit permissions. So as you know, in SharePoint, it's you go to one page at a time to change permissions. So the tool will allow you to bulk edit permissions across sites and lists and items from one screen if you need to. So for example, removing a user or group's permissions into multiple areas. There's a built-in scheduler, so you can create scheduled jobs. Okay, platform supported. So the toolkit in SharePoint Permissions Manager component supports SharePoint 2010, 2013, 2016, and Office 365. Okay, it does not support SharePoint 2007 or older. We're using SharePoint CSOM or web services to communicate, and that was more fully developed in 2010. Had limited web services support in 2007. So the tool only supports 2010 and higher, okay, and any future versions. Some of the key features is there's no server install, as I mentioned, and there's no database install. So similar to SharePoint Designer or Microsoft Office, you just install the client application on a site owner or site collection admin's machine, and they can use it to generate reports on demand or as needed. Okay, there's no SQL database instance needed or anything like that. Personalizable reports. So the reports that you can create are fully customizable, and I'll show you that in detail after. You can export the reports to SharePoint. It's built in, so you can automate that as well in a scheduler. Schedule report creation, so you can do weekly, monthly, daily, whatever is needed or suits your requirements. And those can be scheduled, for example, to export to SharePoint so that all site owners, for example, or management, they can see who has access to what, for example, if you need a report on that. Okay, and it supports multiple formats to export to, like Excel and PDF and Word. Okay, so now I'm going to go over some of the use cases of the tool and what it can, some of the reports it can generate and what some of the business needs that it will fulfill. Okay, so basically out of the box, SharePoint has limited permission reports. It's usually at the site level or a list level where you can click on check permissions, or you can write PowerShell, but then you need to have farm rights and access to the server. So there's some limited, there's some permission reporting in SharePoint, but it's limited. A lot of times you will need to generate a report on who has access to in your environment or to artifacts in your SharePoint site collections. So, for example, you need to often be able to report across sites. So, out of the box or with other, competitor tools, you can build a report on a single sub-site, for example, quite easily. And same within SharePoint. You can create a report on a site, but not across, for example, site collections or farms even. So if I need to create a report across a user's permissions across, 3 site collections and all the subsites in them, I can create a job that'll do that with this tool. Okay. Another common business requirement is the ability to see all uniquely permissioned items. So security or permissions that are applied at an item or file level. So at a specific document, someone's granted access, and you may need to see who's been granted access to that, for example. And this report will help you do that. Changing permissions for users or groups is another, common requirements. So being able to, let's say, in the next bullet here, bulk remove individual user permissions or groups across sites, or changing permission levels. If you have a contractor and you need to remove their permissions, you can do that in bulk. And that brings me to the next point. So again, you can schedule granting permissions and schedule removing permissions. Again, I'll go into the changing permissions in the live demo as well. Basically, site owners and site collection admins just need a simple tool to be able to build a report on who has access to what. So if management comes over and says they need a report on who has access to this list or library, you can do that easily with this tool, creating jobs for libraries and lists and sites. Okay. As I mentioned before, you can export the reports. So another common business need is to have availability of these reports, for example, on a schedule. So this tool will be able to export reports to SharePoint. So users and stakeholders could review these reports as they needed, and as you have it, as you can schedule them, users won't be able to say that you never provided this to me or I didn't have access. So if needed, you can provide these permission reports to SharePoint. Okay, let me go into the review the product live, but just before that, I just want to give you a screenshot of what the home page looks like, where you can manage the site collections that you're responsible for. So as I mentioned, it's designed for site owners and site collection administrators. We have farm admins using the tool as well. So typically what you would do is you would add the site collections in the different environments that you're managing or that person is managing. Here, I have 2010 production environment, 2013, 2016 Office 365. You may not have all of these different environments, but if you do, you can group them and display them and then run permission reports for each of them from here. Okay. So let me go switch screens. And this is a Windows 10 machine. It can be installed on a Windows 7 machine or higher. Okay. So from here, I have some sites already added. When you first install the tool, this will be blank. This is what's called the home page dashboard here. The top we call the top navigation, and the left we just call the left navigation. So if you're looking the user manual, that's what they're referred to. Permissions manager component relates mostly to this option or this top navigation menu button here. It's called security, and I'll show you that in a minute. But as I said, the first thing is when this the toolkit loads, this will be blank. You'll need to click Add Site to be able to add a site collection that you manage to this screen. Okay. So let's say I'm going to use this sales site as an example. A fairly simple vanilla site, but it'll give you an idea of what the type of reports that can be built. So the first thing is you'd want to add the URL to the site that you're going to manage. It could be a sub-site or site collection. Credentials, if it's on-premise, or forms authentication. Mainly if it's on-premise, you'll use the default SharePoint authentication. Okay. If you've got Office 365, you'll usually use Office 365 option here. But if you have Office 365 with multi-factor authentication or a federated on-premise environment or a custom login screen in your environment, then you'd want to use web browser authentication. Okay, but for this test, I'm going to use the default SharePoint authentication. Oops. Okay, so it'll auto-detect the username, or you can enter it here if it's a service account or something that you need to use. You enter the password. Here I only added one site collection, but you could have many site collections that you need to add instead of adding one at a time. So if you're responsible for like 100 or 1,000 site collections, which some of our customers needed, we added roughly a year ago, this import option, maybe a year and a half ago. So you could import from an Excel file. We have a PowerShell script that we put in our user manual if you need to run that to generate a list of all the site collections. Again, the tool was designed for site owners and site collection admins, so they may not have farm rights to the web application to automatically grab all of these site collections, so that's why we have this option, the import. But if they have the option, the ability, or if it's on-premise and they have the permissions to retrieve all the sites, you could use this option to use search to automatically retrieve all site collections. Okay, so anyhow, mainly the first step is you just add the site that you want to manage, and then you hit Add Site. Okay, this is only a single root site that I added, so it was really quick. Otherwise, it would have added all the subsites automatically that you have access to. So I'm going to say no to no more sites. This is the site that was added. The green check marks show the, if a report was generated for this site. So there we have different components. So for the permissions report, it's the one with the security lock. And I ran a report before for it. But this way you'll know if jobs have been run on that site for permissions, for example. Okay. When you first set up the tool, obviously you won't have any jobs run on it. So it would be blank. Okay. This is a site that has, this one has many subsites. So when you have an environment with more than one root site, then it'll look more like this with the tree view. Okay. The second thing you need to do, so the first one was click Add Site and add the site, then it shows up here. The second thing you do is you right-click on the site, and then you can hit Permissions Report. Create Reports, and then Permissions Report. Okay, this page that shows up here will give you some options of what type of information you're going to capture for your permissions report. Okay, I can give it a job name if I want to. So this can be used, so after you change all the settings and options, you can reload the job as a template, and it'll fill all the options that you set. Okay. The credentials will be brought over from what I entered before. Here are some report options. Hide limited access is when you don't want to show limited access in the reports. You could show them if you want to, but it's, this is the option to hide them. Site collection administrators. This is if you want to create a report that grabs the site collection admins from the site. If you have a job that's running across multiple sites, then it'll grab for each of those sites, because you can run a report on multiple site collections. So you can see here there's Office 365, there's I have a demo NYC site collection, I have sales. I could create a bulk job as well on all these site collections, these actually 4 site collections, and then I would get a report on the site collection administrators for each with their contact information. Okay. Site permissions option here is to retrieve permissions at the site level. So if you're somewhat familiar with permissions in SharePoint, you can have them at the site level, list level, and item level. So selecting this option will retrieve the site level permissions that are set at that level. List permission, this is for grabbing all of the list permissions. Include system lists, this is if you want to show hidden lists, system hidden lists in the reports, okay, which you may want to or you may not. Unique item permission, so this is for the items that, so this will generate a report for the items that have uniquely defined permissions. Okay, and I'll show you that in a minute as well. We also have show nested permissions. So these two are quite similar. One is for SharePoint groups and one is for AD groups. So in SharePoint group you can build a report, and if I uncheck this, it'll show me in the report the name of the SharePoint groups. So for example, if a SharePoint group was granted access in a list, like documents or shared documents, that SharePoint group name will show up in this report for that shared documents list okay, as part of this report. If I select this option, it'll show that SharePoint group in the list permissions report, for example, for shared documents, but that SharePoint group, let's say the sales members group, if I select this option and turn it on, it'll also show me all the users inside of that sales members group or the SharePoint group. Okay, so that shows the nested permissions. Same with this option here. It's very similar. So if I have applied a domain Active Directory security group, for example, to SharePoint, like domain users or everyone or marketing users or something like that, that's an AD group. Selecting this option, the tool will go and use a LDAP query and reach out to the your LDAP server or AD server. It'll check the permissions of that group and then include the nested permissions of those AD groups in the report. If you have AD groups like domain users or everyone that are very large, like 100,000 users, for example, or 50,000 users, and you have domain users group set many times, for example, across different lists, then your report will take longer to generate, obviously. So you could turn it off or just check how long it takes to complete the report. It'll complete, the reports can handle up to 4 million records, so it just takes long. It'll affect the time it takes to complete. Okay, so if you need to see nested AD permissions, you can select this option. Okay. Next, we have the email options. So if any of you have used any of our other components, these are all it's a similar format. When you use one of the components, the other components are fairly similar. So under here, we've got email, which is a spot you can add to, enter the user's email address if you want to. The reports can get emailed as attachments as Excel. We have a free component called Essentials Lite that is a click once application, and it doesn't require a license. So if you use this format, it gives you a nicer interface to drag and drop and then export to Excel. I won't go into too much detail about this, but you can try that component if you want. You can download it from our website. Then there's the option to include logs. Okay. Down here, we have something called views that's similar to the concept of SharePoint views. So this job is going to create different reports. A site level report for site permissions here. This is the first one. And when it attaches this Excel file, or when it for this report, you can apply a view to it. So there's filtering and grouping applied to the Excel report that gets emailed out. Otherwise, you can just set the defaults for all these. And I'll show you more of the views after. Okay, it's more of an advanced thing, but you can use this to customize the reports and create a personalized view and apply it, for example, if you need to, let's say, filter by a specific user or only show full control, in the report, you can filter that, create the view, save it, and then apply it here to these emailed reports. Okay. So I want to try to get through this because it's about halfway through. So I'm going to generate the report and show you those. Inclusion rules. This just allows you to specify the lists. So if you've got mainly just one list with lots of items or something like that, you could specify the names of the lists here, for example, and put multiple if you need to. Okay, but that's optional. If you leave it blank, it'll apply to all lists found. And then exclusion rules is just the opposite. So if you've got a test library, for example, you can exclude that here. So for example, also like the style library, if you've got out of the box, you may not want to bother checking the style library, for, that would be across multiple sites even. Okay. Here's the export options. So you're able to export these reports to the same SharePoint site, or just as Excel, or to different SharePoint sites or lists. So from here, by default, it'll be the same site, sales, that it'll get exported to. I can put the list name, So let me choose Excel for this one. For list permissions, I'm going to choose to export this report. Let's just call it SharePoint list permissions reports. You can have the report exported as list items, so you can filter and create views and groups in SharePoint. But if you include AD permissions, for example, or you have really large SharePoint groups, it's possible these list items could, get into tens of thousands if you have thousands or tens of thousands of users. Okay, in that case, we would want to use Excel, and then that'll, it can handle thousands of records in Excel easily. Update action, so you can choose that it'll update the Excel file on this list automatically, right? Like it'll overwrite it. If you want to keep historical log of all of your permissions, you can do a date timestamp as well. Okay. I could create the same thing for item reports and the site collection administrator reports. I'm just going to leave those as default, but I'll still show you those reports once it's done. After I set these options, I can hit Save Job. Okay, and then it'll save the job, and I could reuse this for another site collection or a group of sites and site collections if I want to after, with these same export settings, for example. Schedule job. This will just let me schedule the job. So it's similar to Windows Task Scheduler, so users should be somewhat familiar with it. You can use weekly, monthly, and then choose the options of when you want to choose schedule your jobs. Okay. So I'm going to run this now, and then I'm going to show you the next report, which is an individual user report. Again, this was a permissions report that gets run at the site level. You can create it for multiple sites, and then view a merged report, which I'll show you after. I showed you right here just one report, but if I wanted to, I could create a bulk job, right, for all of these sites or site collections. I could also view merged permissions reports. So this will show me a report for permissions across all of these sites. So I'm going to run this job first, and then I'm going to show you this merged report later. But that's also another option. So even on a certain site tree, like these sites, for example, if I just needed to check the permissions of a specific user or for all users across this branch of sites, I could right-click View Reports, and it's going to show me a report specific to, for permissions, list permissions for all of these, for example, or even unique item permissions, etc. And I could share these once it's viewed, the merged reports viewed. Okay, and I'll show you that in a minute. So let's go and run the job. Once you hit Run Now or Scan Now, it's going to show you the detailed logs here of what's happening. You can just let it run. It should be fairly quick. In this lab or test environment, I believe there's around 2,000 domain accounts, so it should finish pretty fast. So the next report that I want to show you is check user permissions. Okay. This, I'm going to just resize this grid. This report is for when you want to do like, let's say, check domain users account access. Okay, you could do something like that. And then you could check domain users from here. If you want to check, let's say, a specific user, Let's see. Because I believe I set this person with access uniquely. I'll have to double check. But you'd enter the user's account name. Okay, it could be in the format, of email or with domain/username. It's going to try to auto-detect the name. So like just now, I just selected it. The credentials, you'll have to input here because it could be across site collections or farms, sorry, I should say. And then once you do that, you can select which sites you want to check this person's access. So where does Addison have access to? I could group and say by site collection. Let's say just the sales I'm going to do a test on or check access. And so you just select it. You could do multiple environments, for example. And then there's similar inclusion and exclusion rules. And then also, you can export this user's access to SharePoint to make it easy. I'm going to see if I can export this to SharePoint. I could do it as list items just for this example. I don't think there's a lot of permissions that are going to get exported, but I just wanted to show you this part as well. So a user's permission. Again, you can save the job, schedule it for later, like weekly or something even if you want to. Okay, I think that's it. So I'm going to hit scan now. Okay, and then very similar to all the tools I mentioned, it's going to go through and show you the detailed logs of what's happening. I think this one's already completed. So, so it took just 25 seconds, but from here it's going to show you a summary of what was done, and then you could export these logs if you need to, but usually you won't need to. It'll have here the links for the different types of permissions. For the list permissions, I also export it to SharePoint Online, so I could, view the permission report online as well by clicking that link. You can see here we created an Excel file with a table, so we apply a format too as well, so that you can filter and sort. But before I go into detail with all of these columns in this report, I'm going to show you it in the actual tool. Let's start with site permissions. So if I open site permissions for the sales site, I'll get a lot of information here, and basically what this is all the permissions granted at the sales site at the site level. Okay, so I can easily, the main thing is you can group, like one of the best features is that you can group these this report like by column. So for example, I need to see who has access by, if I needed to, I could see the AD groups that have access. So I can see, okay, this is an AD group that has access. It has edit rights at the site level, and I can see it was granted access through sales members. It'll also show you any custom permission level that you can click on if you want to see the details of that permission level. But I could right-click, and then I can hit Open Site Permissions, and then I can see here sales members, and I can see that how this group was granted access quite quickly by just right-clicking on that record. If I want to see users access in the site at the site permission, at the top level, if you have a lot of inherited lists, you might want to use this report to see users who have access. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. You can also, for example, group by name. So let's say I'm going to group by this display name, and I'll have different users with different access in the site level, right? So I can see this user, Abraham, was granted access through domain users group, and also he's a member of sales users. And again, you can right-click open site permissions, and then what did it say again? Domain sales visitors, domain users. So I can hit sales visitors, domain users, and I can see, this was how this user was granted access at the site level. Okay. Again, I could filter this out and group it and then save the view. I could show you as well, this is only one site. If this was a merged report, I could also group by if it's inherited permissions. This is uniquely defined permissions, so it's inherited permissions is false. But you can quickly filter and sort. There's a lot of options that you can do. You can right-click, and then there's even a query that you can build and then create a view on any of these any of these columns. Okay. Let's go to the list permissions. Very similar to the site permissions, but just at the list level. Okay. So mostly this could be used because lists is where the content is, and that's usually what people are more interested in checking. So from here I've got the list permissions report, and I can see, it's very similar types of columns. Let's say I want to see all lists with unique permissions. I could drag this over, and then it'll show me all the users' permissions that are unique or they're not inherited. I could then check which lists they are by dragging the list title. Okay, so only product user manuals is the only list with unique permissions. Okay, so I'm just kind of building a report on the fly and showing you how I would go about doing it. If I needed to see a specific user's access, so for example, let's say this user Amy Reese, I'm going to group by here and then filter by Amy Reese, and I can see where she has access. Okay, I could say, okay, you know what, I only want to see what she has full control of, or just group by that permission level. I could group that here, for example, and I can see she has read access granted directly, because inherited is false, and then here she has inherited permissions, read access to all of these. Okay, and again, I could drag this column granted through and then see how Amy was granted access. So she was granted access, and read access through the same group. Okay, I'm going to reset this permissions groupings, and I could do another one. So for example, I have some built-in ones. So users with direct access, for example. So these are where users have been granted access directly in the sales site. So this user, Addison, was granted contribute access directly, and the list title is product user manuals. So I can right click on it, hit open list permissions, and then I can see Addison was granted access directly here. And then you can make the changes here if you want to remove the user, or if I wanted to I could select here even, or if I found a couple of them where I didn't want users granted access directly, I can select them too, right click and hit edit permissions. And this is useful if there's 100 different instances here. I only have 2 instances found of uniquely defined permissions, but just to demo what it can do, I just select those two. I can, let's say, limit their access, or I can just say completely remove that user's access, these two users, from the product user manual list. And it could be multiple lists here. I just happen to select only those two because that was the only list that is here. And I can schedule that to remove them at a later date, or I can hit run now. I can say yes. Okay, and then it's completed, and then it'll show you a summary at the end. So I can go back to the site and refresh, and I can see it just clean them up. So it'll do what it's supposed to do, and it will clean up, if you need to do a cleanup or change the permissions, etc. So what I did here is, creating these reports and filtering them. And as I mentioned, you can save the view. So as you sort and filter, let's say I wanted to see just domain users that have access. I can hit Control F and then select domain user if I needed to, and I could see, it'll show me a match. Oops, I could put in double quotes. And okay, it's showing me a match because all of these are matched there. But you can use this to, for example, find users quickly. Okay. And then again, when you're ready and you created your filtering and sorting, you can hit Save View, and then oops. So let's say these are unique permissions, not inherited. By account type, let's say. Right, so you can create this and you can reuse it later for all your other reports. And then this view could be applied to the emails that get notification or that get emailed out weekly, for example, or get sent out to the people who want to see them. Okay. Check permissions report. So this is finished now. So this checked Addison's account access across this one site. And again, you could have done it on multiple. I'll hit Open Report. Since I also exported to SharePoint, it gives me the option here for online, but I'm going to open the one in here first. It's only going to be a few items, I think. Yep. So it'll just show me, basically, okay, what does this user have access to? And I may want to remove domain users because it's giving everyone access to all of these things, or to all of the lists and libraries. But I can see here, okay, was granted access directly to there, which I already removed. And then it'll get picked up in the next, scheduled report, or once you run it again. But so this is a report across, sites, lists, and it'll also show you item level. Okay. For the item level permissions, I believe I have some in the sales site. Should be. Sorry, because this is a new environment that I'm using. But so it does. So there's unique items here. What I can do is I can group it by, for example, item title, because it's a lot of information. You want to use the grouping so you can see, what it's easier to see the information when it's grouped. So I've got one item that has unique permissions. It's either going to be an item or a folder, so I can group it by access type as well. I apologize. So there's only a folder here, but otherwise, if there's items, you'll have a list of all the folders or items in here. So again, from here, I could see by grouping, by using the grouping, I can see how users were granted access, and then I can see, for example, the item level. So I can see how users were granted access, and then I can see how users were granted access, and then I can see how users were granted access, and then I can see how users were granted access, and then I can see how users were granted access, and then I can see how users were granted access, and then I can see how users were granted access, and then I can see how users were granted access, and then I can see how users were granted access, and then I can see how users were granted access, and then I can see how users were granted access, and then I can see how users were granted access, and then I can see how users were granted access, and then I can see how users were granted access, and then I can see how users were granted access, and then I can see how users were granted access, and then I can see how users were granted access, and then I can see how users were granted access, and then I can see how users were granted access, and then I can see how users were granted access, and then I can see how users were granted access, and then I can see how users were granted access, and then I can see to this one folder. So if I right click, so I've got, it looks like there's only 4 objects are granted access directly to this folder. If I right click, open item permissions, there it is, 4 of them. But within these 4 groups, there's, sales users test group, it's an AD group, and domain users that's granting many users access. Okay, so this is a report on unique items, and let's say I needed to share this or any of these reports with like management or something like that on the fly. I just created this report. It took about 25 seconds to create this, and then I can hit export. I could then share it. Once I'm done with it, I could share it by exporting to a SharePoint list, or I can hit export to Excel. And when you export to Excel, it'll keep the grouping and filtering. So the filtering that I did just now by, the items type, so in this case it's a folder, not an actual list item, then the title's name, I grouped it by, then how users were granted access to this object, which is a folder. So then you can, expand it, and it keeps its grouping. That's mainly the point that I wanted to show you. Okay, you can further format it if you want to, etc. But that's how it gets exported. Okay. I can go over to now the site collection administrators is just going to show me a few, 1 or 2. Yeah, so there's only one site collection administrator. This is me on this lab environment. But if I wanted to view merged reports, I could. For example, here, if I click, hold Shift, and I could select all the children for this site, and then also include this one, for example. I could also include like my Office 365 environment if I wanted to. And I can view report, let's say permissions report. Okay, and then what I could do is I could group it by the site URL if I wanted to, because there's different subsites here. So you can see the demo NYC had a lot of subsites there. But I also have the Office 365 and the sales environment. So I could, I could do these groupings if I want to, but if I don't need to group by that, let's say I needed to group by a user, I could group by display name, and I believe this user might have access to, right, so this user has access, I can see Abbott Jensen has access to the Demo NYC site and the sales site. And I can see how the user was granted access. Okay, hopefully that's clear, but I could further group and see that, let's say, the site title. So was granted access. So you can group it and sort it, as I already mentioned many times, to get the type of information you want. Okay, whatever the requirements are. So I'm trying to show you a few different scenarios where you can group them and then view the report and then export them to share. Okay, if this is too much information here, you can always filter it by the site. So this is only going to show me where it's the Demo NYC site now. I just filtered that really quickly, and then I could just say, just show me this one user, and they are granted access to Demo NYC, and these are all the lists where this group give this person access. So has access to documents, edit rights, and was granted by the everyone group. I could right click again, open list permissions, and then there's a group called everyone here that I may not want there, but that way you can have a quick quickly see, what people have had access to by grouping and sorting, right? And I can see let me clear this filter. So everyone is granted 1,300 people access, for example. Okay, so there's about 9 minutes left. If anyone has any questions, then please feel free to post them, or you can email me after the webinar. You should get an automated email with my contact information already. So thanks for joining. Let me just go over licensing with you. So it is licensed by site collection and end user. And on our website, you can choose by clicking add to cart the discounts for volume. So if you have multiple site collections, many site collections are different users that need to use the tool, then you can click add to cart from this site's product page, and it'll show you the amounts there. The license is annual, and it includes technical support and unlimited tech support, so phone calls and emails, as well as all major and minor software updates. Okay, so thanks again for joining, and look forward to hearing from you.